A man simply wrote the death of a villain in his novel, but the villain pulled him into the story, making him become the villain. What made him even more desperate was that he had transmigrated to the exact moment when the villain was about to be assassinated. So to survive, he actually fled into the demon realm that harbored deep hatred for humans. This man's name was Nam Woo-hyun, a web novelist. After he finished writing about the death of the strongest villain in his worldview, his novel was about to reach its conclusion. However, at that moment, there was suddenly a knock at the door, so he curiously went to the entrance, but the sound abruptly stopped. While he was puzzled, a piece of paper suddenly appeared before his eyes. Looking carefully, he found a sentence clearly written on the paper. "This is a gift specially prepared for you. Please remember to claim it when needed." Immediately after, the paper began emitting a dark red aura. Before he could react, the next second, the villain he had written to death appeared in his mind. The villain spoke with great unwillingness. "I devoted enormous time and energy just to take revenge on those who destroyed my family. Yet I still died." As he spoke, the villain's palm suddenly pressed against the top of his head. "Please remember to help me fulfill my wish." Immediately after, Nam Woo-hyun lost consciousness on the spot. When he opened his eyes again, he thought what just happened was a hallucination from staying up late. But when he walked to the mirror, he immediately understood everything. Blood-red hair, a slightly upturned mouth corner, and those unfathomable, squinting eyes. It seemed he had transmigrated into the body of the strongest villain in his novel, Arsène Edel. What made him even more desperate was that in just a few days, it would be the exact moment when Arsène Edel was to be assassinated. The Arsène family was originally a mixed-blood family that inherited demon bloodline. Due to the power contained in their bloodline, they had become one of the top families in the empire. But under the alliance of 6 major families, they were ultimately completely destroyed. Fortunately, Arsène Edel survived that catastrophic disaster, which established his reason for becoming a villain. However, his single-minded pursuit of revenge ultimately failed, which led to Nam Woo-hyun being pulled into the novel. But compared to all this, the most important thing right now was how he would deal with the assassination in a few days. The first thing he thought of was the status window. Arsène Edel could definitely be considered among the top tier in the novel, but compared to those protagonists with brilliant talents, he was still far behind. But this was only natural, because no matter what form of story it was, there had never been an ending where a villain defeated the righteous protagonist. Besides this, there was another even more troublesome problem. Arsène Edel couldn't even control basic magic power. This was completely unexpected for Nam Woo-hyun. Back when he wanted to make Arsène Edel look stronger, the random settings Nam Woo-hyun created were now strangling his own neck. Just then, something glittering on the bed suddenly caught his attention, and he immediately recognized it as the paper that had appeared before being pulled into the novel. So he placed all his hopes on this piece of paper. But what felt strange to him was that the paper that clearly had a sentence written on it before had now become blank. However, just as he was cursing inwardly, text suddenly appeared on the paper. "Creator, don't you know how to use the gift? Please write yes or no on the paper to answer." Nam Woo-hyun wrote yes without hesitation. The next second, a usage method called information purchase appeared on the paper. "Just write your question on this paper, and we will provide answers. Some questions require payment, while others don't." Nam Woo-hyun wrote method to return to reality without much hope. But as expected, the paper didn't respond. Indeed, returning to reality was just his delusion. So he decided to solve the urgent problem at hand first. Then he wrote detailed method to control magic power and method to use magic power to control Arsène Edel's abilities. Fortunately, this question didn't require any payment. We will imprint the magic usage method and the method to control Arsène Edel's abilities in the creator's body. Do you accept? After getting Nam Woo-hyun's permission, the next second he truly felt the magic aura within his body. Then he experimentally used Arsène Edel's first ability, Darkness, which could deprive opponents of their 5 senses. Although the range it could spread was small, with more practice, it should achieve the expected effect. Next, he used the ability that could suppress opponents with sheer presence, killing intent. While it would be difficult to defeat high-ranking knights with it, it should be more than enough against ordinary soldiers. Finally, there was only that cheat-like talent left, Position Transfer, which, as the name suggested, was the ability to swap places with or transfer to a designated target's position. This was the ultimate assassination technique. Although currently he could only designate targets within about 5 meters, if he kept growing. Thinking of this, Arsène Edel suddenly looked at the armor right in front of him. "Let's practice with this first!" Though he activated it confidently, the next second he fell flat on his back. But he didn't feel discouraged at all, and even swore that no matter how many times he failed, he would continue, because this was his only hope of survival. A few days later, the Allied Knight Order arrived as scheduled. Under the guidance of an Arsène family traitor, Knight Captain Felt successfully found Arsène Edel's room, where Arsène Edel had been waiting for a long time. Seeing this, Felt immediately issued the kill order. But as Arsène Edel used position transfer to designate his target, in an instant he appeared before a soldier, and mercilessly stabbed him with a sword. Seeing this scene, Feltz was immediately shocked. Then he issued an attack order to everyone. In response, Arsene Adel first broke through the window, then threw his short sword to the ground. The next second, he used his ability to swap positions with the short sword, then ran toward the Arsene Forest without looking back. Arsene Forest was also his last hope, because even if he managed to escape the Night Order and flee outside the territory, his chances of survival would be minimal. In that case, it was better to go to the demon realm through the portal in the forest. Due to the long war with humans, the demon realm, which had suffered heavy losses, was currently in a state of recovery. If he could demonstrate sufficient talent, perhaps they would accept this mixed-blood person. The idea was good, but the problem was that Arsene Adel now not only had to avoid pursuit by the Night Order, but also had to search everywhere for the specific location of that portal. Even though he was extremely careful, he eventually stepped on a branch and exposed his position. As his sword light struck, the next second Feltz's figure appeared before him. Although Arsene Adel used position transfer to gain another chance to escape, he knew this wasn't a long-term solution, so he immediately took out the paper and wrote the question specific location of the portal to the demon realm. However, this question was judged as paid information, requiring payment of a relic-grade artifact or higher, or 100 gold coins to get the answer. As Arsene Adel's mind raced with curses, a sword light instantly struck, its powerful force sending him flying several meters. Feltz appeared afterward with a sinister smile. Arsene Adel, today is your death day. However, Arsene Adel, who had lost his fighting ability, didn't fall into despair. There was still one method left, and whether he lived or died, he could only leave it to fate. With this thought, he struggled to his feet and assumed a fighting stance. To catch a little brat, the Night Order came out in full force. How utterly ridiculous. Hearing these words, Feltz immediately flew into a rage. Then he raised his sword and launched a fatal strike. However, Arsene Adel showed a triumphant smile. The next second, he took out the paper and held it in front of himself. The moment the sword touched the paper suddenly emitted a blinding light. Sufficient payment received, payment judged to successfully exceed requirements. Now immediately guiding you to the portal to the demon realm. Indeed, the Knight Captain's weapon was truly a relic-grade artifact. And even more fortunately, the portal's location was right before his eyes. Seeing this, Arsene Adel immediately used position transfer. Although Feltz immediately picked up a wooden block to try to stop him, he was still a step too late. Mr. Feltz, looking forward to seeing you again next time. Just like that, after an unknown amount of time, when Arsene Adel woke up again, he found himself in an underground city, or more precisely, an artificially created underground city, the Magic Palace Secret Realm. But what felt strange to him was, why were there dried meat and stone beds here? Could they have been made by treasure guardians? And there were also impenetrable barriers and stone guards in front of him. Especially those guards, just looking at them sent chills down one's spine. With Arsene Adel's current strength, if he fought head-on, he would definitely be beaten to a pulp. Just then, several lines of text suddenly appeared on the paper. The previous action was a one-time occurrence. As punishment, non-personal items can no longer be used as payment in the future. If you don't follow the rules, information exchange will be permanently unavailable. Feeling frustrated, a brick that stood out on the stone wall immediately caught Arsene Adel's attention. As he pushed it inward with his palm, a voice suddenly came. "You are not qualified. This path is blocked." Looking at the stones scattered outside the barrier, Arsene Adel suddenly thought of a method. Then he designated the stone as his exchange target. Just like that, Arsene Adel successfully escaped from the barrier. But before he could be happy for even a few seconds, the roar of stone guards came from above. At the same time, the head of the bear's family in the demon realm, Crete, was having a headache about his daughter attacking the ultimate secret realm. If the attack succeeded, his daughter would gain qualification to enter the demon realm's educational institution, Satan. However, he hoped his daughter would fail the attack. To avenge her mother who was killed by humans, his daughter had a reason she must enter Satan. But Satan was crawling with evil spirits, which made him inevitably worry whether his daughter could really survive there. Just then, a maid rushed in urgently. She had just received news. An unidentified human had broken into the secret realm. But what surprised everyone was that not only were there no signs of forced entry in the secret realm, but that person had also touched a device that only the family head could use. However, Crete not only didn't send anyone to intercept, but also showed a meaningful smile. No matter who that person is, if he can come out of the secret realm alive, we might have an unexpected gain. Meanwhile, to save his life, Arsene Adel transferred back into the barrier again. When he looked carefully, he discovered the creature outside the barrier was actually a stone wolf made of stone. This immediately gave him a bold idea. Then he designated the stone wolf as his transfer target. Just like that, he successfully trapped the stone wolf in the barrier. But just when Arsene Adel thought he could safely leave by finding the exit, a giant mantis appeared outside the next checkpoint. It turned out each checkpoint had tasks, and creatures more dangerous than those in previous checkpoints appeared. However, Arsene Adel used the same method again and easily passed. While also confirming an inner doubt, As long as it was an inanimate object, he could use position transfer to swap with it. Just like that, after passing several checkpoints, soon a different checkpoint slowed his progress. Welcome, invader! This made Arsenadel wonder, could this be the final boss checkpoint? But when he checked carefully, he found a Death Knight full of killing intent sitting inside, and just from its aura, it was comparable to Felt's. However, just as the Death Knight was about to rise and display his majesty, the next second, it appeared outside the barrier. While Arsenadel, who had transferred into the barrier, was immediately attracted by a treasure chest placed on the ground. But after seeing the black dragon symbol on the chest, Arsenadel immediately had his answer. He hadn't expected to come to the territory of the highest-ranking demon clan, full of malice and arrogance, and harboring deep hatred for humans, the Bears family. Thinking of this, cold sweat couldn't help but break out on his forehead. It's over. If I'm caught, I'm definitely dead. So he steeled his heart and directly opened the treasure chest. Since death was inevitable anyway, what if there was something inside that could help him leave? However, he discovered there was only a strange aura inside. Then that aura rushed toward him, entering his body through his mouth. After complete absorption, intense pain made Arsenadel let out continuous screams. As a rusty-tasting liquid gushed out from within his body, the next second he fainted on the spot. When Arsenadel regained consciousness again, looking at his left eye that had fallen to the ground, and the black pupil that had replaced his original red pupil, he immediately checked his status window. So the aura just now was the Eye of Pride. The Eye of Pride would dramatically improve dynamic vision and would be activated when defeating enemies. Arsenadel smiled proudly. Indeed, coming to the demon realm was a wise move. With this ability, dealing with numerous but weaker opponents would no longer be a problem. Now, it was time to leave this place. But looking at the gate to exit the secret realm, Arsenadel couldn't help but worry. With such a commotion just now, there must be quite a few forces gathered outside. If they discover I'm from the Arsen family, even if I kneel and beg for mercy, they won't spare me. Thinking of this, Arsenadel immediately hid the family crest. Just then, the Death Knight outside the barrier suddenly became agitated, continuously shouting, "The master is about to arrive! Hurry up and open the door!" Hearing this, Arsenadel finally realized that this was a secret realm set up by a high-ranking family for trials, and the dried meat and stone beds from before were also prepared for the arriving dignitary. With this thought, he immediately decided to find out who the other party was. Otherwise, having taken what that person should have received, they would definitely tear him to pieces. So he wrote on the paper the question, who is coming to this secret realm? But this question required payment. Please pay a relic grade artifact or higher, or 100 gold coins. After much consideration, Arsenadel finally decided to exchange 100 magic power points for the answer. Judgment successful? 100 magic power points collected from the creator. The person coming to the secret realm is Renee, the youngest daughter of Bear's family head Crete. Seeing this, Arsenadel's heart trembled. So this was a secret realm built by the Bear's family head to train his daughter. Then the Eye of Pride must be the reward for completing the conquest. And someone like Renee with outstanding abilities would definitely solve the guardians like cutting vegetables. Then appear before Arsenadel. As expected, now looking at the aggressive Renee, Arsenadel immediately knelt devoutly on the ground. Congratulations, Miss Renee, on successfully conquering the secret realm, and you have also gained sufficient qualification. Under family orders, I will now escort you out of here. Looking at Renee's suspicious expression, Arsenadel continued, "If you're doubting my abilities..." As soon as he finished speaking, he appeared right in front of Renee. "Do you think this ability can protect you, Miss Renee?" Seeing Renee lower her guard, Arsenadel also breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she didn't recognize the Eye of Pride. Next, he would use her to avoid the crisis outside the door. However, the actual situation was completely beyond Arsenadel's expectations. Why is the great Demon King Crete waiting outside? This made him feel utterly hopeless. If the Demon King saw that he had taken the Eye of Pride, he would definitely die here. However, the Demon King not only didn't make things difficult for Arsenadel, but even let him follow along. Although this unexpected situation made him very uneasy. He knew in his heart that trying to fight off these people and escape was simply impossible. Moreover, he could no longer offer any payment to seek help from the Oracle. Before long, they finally arrived at the Demon King's residence. After dismissing everyone else, the Demon King left Arsenadel alone outside the main door. But just when he thought this was the perfect opportunity to escape, several sharp gazes directly dispelled his thoughts. At this time, inside the room, the Demon King looked expressionlessly at his daughter Renee. "It seems you've completed the final task. Must you really enter Satan?" After receiving Renee's affirmative answer, Crete asked her about the guy outside. Renee thought for a moment. That person is very strong. Hearing this, Crete immediately showed an intriguing smile. He had thought Arsenadel would surely die after breaking in without permission. He hadn't expected him to not only survive the secret realm but also obtain the Eye of Pride, and even gain Renee's favor. What a useful fellow indeed. With this thought, he immediately agreed to Renee's request to go to Satan. Afterward, the Demon King met with Arsenadel alone. Looking at those hair-raising eyes, Arsenadel couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Why? Why did you spare me? Crete smiled wickedly. Then a terrifying demonic aura burst forth from his body, and Arsene Adel was pressed to the ground by this force. But he still showed no fear. "You never intended to kill me anyway, did you?" Crete, having been seen through, immediately withdrew his demonic aura and asked his name with interest. After learning his name was Arsene Adel, Crete immediately pulled him to his side and put a black dragon into his mouth. "Arsene Adel, you just need to continue doing what you told my daughter before. If you dare have even the slightest transgressive thought, that black dragon will immediately tear your heart to pieces." Just like that, Arsene Adel became a retainer of the Bears family according to Crete's will. Although this feeling of being controlled made him very uncomfortable, being able to survive Crete's hands and gain his recognition was already a good result. Next, he needed to deal with that thing in his body. Thinking of this, he immediately tested position transfer. As expected, this guy was really just an inorganic object, but to avoid being discovered by Crete, he couldn't kill it now, nor could he let it make noise. So Arsene Adel had to feed it some demonic energy. After successfully lulling the black dragon to sleep, he lay on the bed and checked his status window. Although position transfer had upgraded to level 2, magic power was still a big problem. Compared to the protagonist, the current Arsene Adel was simply a rookie who had just started. But just as he was wondering how to increase his magic power, a bold idea suddenly emerged from his heart. The scene changed, and before he knew it, Arsene Adel had been serving as Renee's guard for 4 days. These days, Renee always had a cold demeanor. When she was young, she had a lively and cheerful personality, but after losing her mother in the human world, she changed. This made Arsene Adel, as the author, feel very ashamed. Just then, he and Renee suddenly received a summons from Crete, and this time it was to discuss enrollment at Satan Academy. Renee had gained admission qualification by successfully conquering the secret realm, but what made Crete uneasy was that Satan Academy wasn't a simple place. With Renee's abilities, he believed she wouldn't last long before dying there, so he immediately proposed letting Arsene Adel accompany her as a guard for enrollment, even though Renee was 100% unwilling. To avenge her mother, she finally agreed. Arsene Adel, on the other hand, completely understood Crete's decision. Satan Academy was a magic training academy where talented students from the demon realm gathered, always in opposition to the Imperial Academy where the protagonists were located. During the confrontation between the two academies, many students, including Renee, died. That place was like a ticking time bomb. No one knew when they might lose their lives. However, Arsene Adel was full of anticipation for this trip, because the major events between the two academies had all been written by his hand. This gave him great confidence that he could establish his own power there. Although Arsene Adel thought this way, his face showed great difficulty. Then he proposed that bold idea to Crete. He wanted some things related to magic power. Hearing this, Crete first agreed to his request, then dismissed Renee. This made Arsene Adel wonder, was Crete going to give him some magic power elixir? Or perhaps some mysterious family treasure? But just then, Crete suddenly slammed the table and stood up. While gathering a large amount of magic power in his palm, "I know you have little magic power within you. Since I'm asking you to die in my daughter's place, this much I can still do. Next, I will teach you the Bears family's magic power cultivation method." With that, he began chanting an incantation. "Demon God, let your people perceive the undercurrent of chaos. Only ask that you don't let us fall into unbearable trials. If you grant this, we will surely glorify your victory." As the ritual ended smoothly, Crete showed a hint of surprise. For ordinary people, hearing news of salvation should normally cause excitement. Because this method directly receives divine power from the demon god, it will definitely allow one to achieve their desires. Saying this, he suddenly changed his tone. "Your family seems to be connected to the 7 deadly sins. But since the black dragon has been planted, I'll just be a peaceful observer." Hearing this, Arsene Adel looked confused. The Arsene family and the 7 deadly sins? I don't remember creating such a setting. The scene changed, and Arsene Adel came to a deserted outskirt. Then he activated the Bears family's magic power cultivation method. Although once accepting the demon god's divine power meant he could never use human magic power again, this was unavoidable for him. Just then, a black shadow suddenly appeared in midair. It doesn't seem to be that child's bloodline, but rather the blood of a despicable traitor. Arsene Adel fearfully asked if he was the demon god. The shadow immediately confirmed it. But what made the demon god feel strange was, "Why don't I have the urge to kill you? You seem to be in the same line of work as me. For some reason, I feel a sense of kindred spirits from you. But for those who want to walk the same path as me, I must bestow a proof. With this proof, it means you can borrow my power. But I must warn you, don't let this power go to your head." As Arsene Adel was secretly delighted, there was suddenly a strange sound behind him. When he turned to look, he discovered the person was actually Renee. Seeing this, he immediately became terrified. Why is she here? Did she hear all my conversation with the demon god? However, looking at Arsene Adel, Renee's face showed a hint of shyness. God official. After just 1 month of effort, Arsene Adel's magic power had improved dramatically, which also gave him sufficient confidence to conquer the undead territory. But what gave him a headache was that, Ever since Renee determined he was a god official, she'd been clinging to him constantly, so Arsene Adel had to make up an excuse to send her away, but was immediately exposed by Renee, who questioned what his real purpose was. After much consideration, Arsene Adel told the truth. I heard there's a secret realm nearby, and I plan to conquer it, but I'm afraid of danger, so I hid it from you. I hope you can understand. Hearing this, Renee immediately became interested, and proposed to go together. Although the plan had changed, Arsene Adel finally agreed, because the undead territory was once the birthplace of the Necromancer clan, but during the Human-Demon War, the entire family was massacred, so it had now become a ghost domain full of ghost soldiers. Looking at it this way, having Renee's help might not be a bad thing, but the problem was, if they acted together, it would be even more difficult to quietly escape from the Demon King's residence. If they were accidentally caught by Crete, the entire plan would be completely ruined. Thinking of this, Arsene Adel directly said, Miss, if the family head finds out you ran out without permission, he will definitely be angry. But Renee indicated he needn't worry. We'll be back tonight, won't we? Besides, I not only know where the undead territory is, but I also know the secret exit to escape the residence. Just like that, under Renee's guidance, they soon arrived at the entrance to the undead territory. But what Arsene Adel hadn't expected was that it was brighter inside than he had imagined. Just then, dozens of skeletons suddenly emerged from the ground and surrounded them in the center. In response, Arsene Adel immediately signaled Renee to attack, and told her there was an undead casting spells at the end of the tunnel. To destroy the golden orb in the caster's hand would end the conquest. While the caster was fighting with Renee, Arsene Adel seized the opportunity to use his newly upgraded position transfer. The upgraded position transfer was exactly the exchange between objects. Just like that, the golden orb successfully came into Arsene Adel's hands, after he crushed it without hesitation. The surrounding skeletons instantly crumbled. At this time, a voice suddenly reached Arsene Adel's mind. All the tragedies that happened here were caused by me. Thank you for letting them rest in peace. Arsene Adel didn't pay attention to this, because what mattered most now was the treasure in the chest, Shadowfang, a dagger forged from Demon Realm black iron that could convert magic power into shadow force. In dark environments, the wielder's piercing power and speed would be significantly enhanced. Full Moon Spirit God, a ring-shaped magical treasure that could absorb magic power fluctuations and moonlight force. After successfully obtaining Shadowfang, looking at the ring that wasn't an immediate need, Arsene Adel decided to give it to Renee. Then he helped Renee put it on her hand. Seeing this scene, Renee's face instantly turned red with embarrassment. Arsene Adel, however, looked confused. Why would she react this way? Could it be that for demons, helping someone put on a ring has some special meaning? At this time, Renee was the first to break the awkwardness. This ring is simply too beautiful. However, Arsene Adel had already focused his attention on the remaining gold coins. But just as he was about to keep them all for himself, a long sword suddenly pressed against his neck. Let's distribute these gold coins fairly. Just like that, after another month of hard training, looking at his significantly improved magic power, Arsene Adel was very satisfied. This level should be able to rank in the middle tier in the demon realm, right? Just then, he and Renee received another summons from Crete. Crete told them that today was the enrollment day for Satan Academy, and they would immediately depart for the capital to prepare for the entrance exam the day after tomorrow. After saying goodbye, looking at Crete seeing them off from the room, Arsene Adel felt mixed emotions. It seems that as demons, parental feelings are the same. Although he was also full of worry about the future path, things had come to this point, and he couldn't help but secretly swear, I must achieve my goal at Satan Academy. Along the way, looking at the silent Renee, Arsene Adel looked confused. Did I do something inadequate? Little did he know, Renee had already begun to doubt his identity as a god official. Such casual words and actions, not as powerful as father either. Could he be a real god official? But thinking of his appearance when talking with the deity, Renee immediately dismissed her doubts. Then she shifted her gaze to her finger, and her face began to unconsciously turn red. In the demon realm, when someone puts a ring on the opposite sex, it represents an eternal vow. This made Renee curious. What vow had Arsene Adel made? After a while, they finally arrived at their destination, the capital of the demon realm, but just from the architecture, there wasn't much difference from the human world. If there had to be a difference, it was that people here would have horns or be a variant species. However, for upper-class demons, there was one obvious difference: tattoos. Then, under Renee's guidance, they smoothly arrived at the Academy's enrollment registration office. But when it was Arsene Adel's turn, the person in charge immediately flew into a rage. A mixed-blood mongrel dares to apply? Even though we lost the war, not just anyone can enter here freely. This made Arsene Adel sigh. Starting like this, the future looks utterly bleak. Just then, Renee suddenly stepped forward. After seeing the pair of horns on Renee's head, the official's tone immediately became gentle. It's a great honor to meet a descendant of the 7 deadly sins. If you're here to register, please state your family and name. Renee immediately introduced herself. I am Renee Bears. At the same time, she also indicated Arsene Adel's identity as her guard. The official was both angry and helpless, but still filled out the information. He couldn't help but say, who would have thought the mighty 7 deadly sins would find a mongrel as a guard? Really no class at all. Hearing these words, Renee's face darkened as she issued a warning. If you dare continue insulting the Bears family, I will definitely not continue to tolerate it. Just like that, after successfully completing their report, they rested at the small inn for another 2 days. And now finally came the day of enrollment at Satan Academy. Arsène Adel never would have imagined that the demon realm would have so many applicants each year to overthrow humanity. It seems he must be careful not to expose his identity. Just then, a train suddenly appeared before everyone, causing Arsène Adel to gasp in amazement. They say that to block invaders, several maze-like dimensional gates have been set up, so one must take a special train to enter the academy. Before long, the train smoothly arrived at its destination, and then an announcement rang out. All applicants, please follow the guidance to the hall where the examination venue is set up. Moments later, everyone gathered in a magnificent hall. But what Arsène Adel found strange was that most of those present were young demons. So where did the descendants of the other 7 deadly sins go? Just as he was lost in thought, the room's doors suddenly closed, and the bright environment instantly turned dark. Then, a spotlight suddenly illuminated the viewing platform, where a mysterious woman stood. The next second, the mysterious woman's eyes turned cold and sinister. Welcome to Satan Academy, you foolish bunch. Let me see next. Who will pass the entrance exam unharmed? Her powerful, intimidating aura made the applicants suffer greatly, and she was actually the principal, Lucien. Today, she personally presided over the first stage of the entrance exam, the mental fortitude test, designed to verify whether applicants could withstand torture without revealing secrets if captured by humans. What disappointed the instructor was that, after only 5 minutes, less than 40% of the applicants in the room could still stand. But besides the descendants of the 7 deadly sins, Arsène Adel's figure also caught the female instructor's attention. To be able to persist until now and still maintain consciousness, that's quite impressive. However, the male instructor sensed something amiss. That boy's body was filled with ruthless killing intent. Not the primitive ferocity of beasts or demons, but the traits possessed only by the most vicious murderers. Thinking this, he instinctively entered a defensive state. Meanwhile, Arsène Adel, struggling to hold on, was thinking of countermeasures. What would happen if he used his mastered killing intent to counter that woman's aura? With this thought, he immediately decided to try, as dark red killing intent burst forth from his body. The next second, this aura formed a confrontational stance with the existing pressure. While catching his breath, Arsène Adel suddenly remembered Renee nearby. As expected, she had managed to endure safely. At the same time, the descendants of the 7 deadly sins all seemed fine too. But what made him feel regretful was that, although Nam Woo-yun had put emotion into these characters when creating them, they were ultimately destined to be slain by the protagonist's group, including the 6 people with Renee. But when Arsène Adel saw a woman with silver-white long hair, red eyes, and a black iron crown, Arsène Adel was suddenly startled. Wasn't that Diana, the daughter of the Demon King of Wrath, who would become the Demon Realm's most evil villain in the future? According to traditional settings, the birth of Demon Kings has always been dominated by the Wrath family, so she had no need to appear here. Who would have thought that such a Demon King candidate would come to Satan Academy as an ordinary applicant? Or was there some unknown hidden circumstances behind this? Just then, sounds of protest around him suddenly interrupted Arsène Adel's thoughts. It turned out the first round of testing had ended, and these people were expressing dissatisfaction at not being able to enter the academy. But the instructor turned a deaf ear to this. Trash who couldn't even stay conscious for 5 minutes in the first test, please leave immediately. After clearing out the eliminated candidates, Arsène Adel turned his attention to Lucien. So that woman was the academy's principal. No wonder she looked familiar. Unlike her cute appearance, Lucien was one of the Demon Realm's top-tier powerhouses. It seemed Arsène Adel would need to be even more cautious from now on. Just then, a wave of praise for Renee suddenly reached his ears. But he wasn't surprised by this. After all, Renee was both a demon and a descendant of the 7 deadly sins, and could easily resist even the principal's harmful aura, so it was natural for her to attract attention. But what he found hard to understand was that he had also desperately held on, so why did those people's gazes seem full of doubt? However, Arsène Adel should be content with leaving the impression of being no ordinary person. Perhaps the principal and instructors had already remembered him. Just then, a booming voice attracted everyone's attention. I'm called Ares, and I'll be your instructor from now on. First, congratulations on passing the first round of testing. The purpose of this test was to determine whether applicants could maintain consciousness when facing torture or dire situations after being captured by humans in the future. Additionally, the 8 people who persisted until the end will receive extra points. If you perform excellently in the second round, you might even gain access to the Armory. Hearing this, Arsène Adel's heart bloomed with joy. Indeed, persisting until the end was correct. However, why did he always feel a chill down his spine? Then, Ares began introducing the rules for the second round of testing. This round requires applicants to demonstrate to Satan how to use their talents and weapons against humans, and the Academy will assign applicants to different classes and courses based on their performance, so please take this seriously. Now, I will announce the human specimen you need to face in this round. With that, he immediately snapped his fingers. As a magical light dissipated, a figure appeared before everyone. After seeing that person's face clearly, all the applicants were shocked. It was actually Nenazel, the strongest hero from humanity's 6 great families. Why was he here? Nenazel was the patriarch of the Nene family and also the father of the novel's protagonist, and the Sword Saint who single-handedly created the strongest family. This left everyone puzzled. Did the Academy not want them to pass the exam? Ares gestured for everyone not to be nervous, as the Sword Saint would only use 10% of his strength. But Arsene Adel was still worried. The Sword Saint's 10% power could easily destroy a city. How did previous examinees pass such an outrageous test? Could this test have some alternative passing criteria? Although he wanted to consult the Oracle, the price he could pay was quite limited. At this time, Ares continued. With your current strength, fighting alone definitely won't work, so you'll be divided into groups of 4. For fairness, the 8 people with excellent first exam scores will be placed in different groups, while the rest will be randomly assigned. Just like that, Arsene Adel became the leader of Group 33, with team members consisting of Chris, who could switch weapons between offensive and defensive forms, Kina, who enhanced allies' speed, and Sanchez, who could harden his body. Arsene Adel then assigned positions based on his team members' abilities. Chris and Sanchez, who excelled at defense, stood in front, Kina at the back providing support, while he stood in the middle looking for attack opportunities. Moments later, the second round of exams finally began. Looking at the first group's members who had considerable strength, Arsene Adel's heart was filled with anticipation. However, the Sword Saint achieved victory easily with just 1 strike. Seeing this scene, all applicants were shocked. They couldn't see any of his movements at all. Was this really only 10% of his strength? As other groups fell one after another, voices of surrender began appearing at the scene. But Arsene Adel showed an intriguing smile. The passing criteria for the second round might be exactly what he thought, but to ensure absolute certainty, he decided to observe a bit more. Until the battle reached Group 30. 5 groups had already chosen to give up before this, and the remaining 25 groups hadn't been able to deal any meaningful damage to the Sword Saint. This was a duel against an impossible opponent to defeat, yet one could withdraw from the exam without any restrictions. This made Arsene Adel immediately certain of his answer. He then told his team members the passing criteria: to face overwhelming power and never give up, fighting bravely even knowing defeat was certain. Before long, it was finally Arsene Adel's group's turn, and Arsene Adel's face was full of confidence. So what if I'm half demon? With my abilities as Arsene Adel, a top-tier villain, I'll definitely take down the Sword Saint. As Ares announced the exam start, they arranged themselves in a single-file formation according to plan. But unlike the protagonist, since the novel didn't describe the Sword Saint in enough detail, Arsene Adel had almost no useful information about Nenazel. In this situation, he could only wait and watch for breakthrough opportunities. Just then, the Sword Saint launched his attack first. Although Chris was sent flying with 1 hit, fortunately Sanchez successfully blocked all the after effects. But what puzzled Arsene Adel was that, although he saw where the opening was, that opening was too obvious. Therefore, his cautious personality didn't let him attack at that moment. Could this be a trap deliberately luring us to attack actively, or did he have some artificial device installed? To completely figure this out, they arranged their formation again. When the Sword Saint used the same move once more, Arsene Adel still couldn't reach a definitive conclusion, but the problem was that Chris had completely lost his fighting ability, and Sanchez's hardening ability was about to reach its limit. Sanchez immediately questioned, "Are you planning to let us all die here?" But after learning of Arsene Adel's plan, he ultimately decided to risk it all. Just like that, watching the Sword Saint use the same move for the 3rd consecutive time, Arsene Adel finally chose to strike. He first used position transfer on the knockdown Sanchez. After reaching midair, he designated the longsword in the Sword Saint's hand as his transfer target. But just as he thought he had succeeded, intense pain suddenly came from his abdomen. However, Arsene Adel had prepared for this. Next, he used his trait on the Sword Saint, Darkness. Without the shield Chris had set up beforehand, his internal organs might have been shattered, although that strike didn't succeed. Fortunately, Arsene Adel had finally trapped Nenazel in this pitch-black space, and the reason for his relief was the Shadow Fang in his hand, because it could unleash power stronger than any weapon in darkness. Just then, the Sword Saint suddenly launched an attack. Seeing this, Arsene Adel first leaned his body backward, then showed a triumphant smile. Behind the Sword Saint, countless Shadow Fangs were ready to strike. As Arsene Adel clenched his palm, the next second, the Shadow Fangs pierced into the Sword Saint's body like meteors. After the black mist slowly dissipated, looking at the Sword Saint fallen on the ground, the room was suddenly dead silent. And this silence was exactly the scene Arsene Adel had been hoping for. In contrast, Prone sitting nearby was dismissive. Half-demons only have this much ability. After all, they're inferior in talent from the start and can't cause any major disturbances. In short, they're both stupid and ugly. As soon as she finished speaking, a cold killing intent suddenly came at her, which made Prone very displeased. Who is that woman? How dare she stare at me like that? But when she saw the horns on Renee's head, she recognized the other's identity. But why was a descendant of bears staring at her with such eyes? Meanwhile, Arsene Adele also noticed Renee's abnormal behavior, but just as he was about to go forward and investigate, Ares suddenly called him over and left a meaningful remark. Arsene Adele, I'll be keeping a close eye on you from now on. Arsene Adele didn't mind this. Then he ran into the crowd, looking at the woman opposite with azure eyes, long hair, and antelope horns on her forehead. He immediately recognized her identity. So it was Prone from the Lust family, but why was she picking a fight with Renee here? At the same time, Prone also noticed Arsene Adele's figure, so she quickly pointed her finger and shouted, "Half-breed, become my slave." Hearing this, Renee immediately drew her sword and launched an attack. As tensions reached a breaking point, Ares appeared in time to stop this battle. Satan Academy prohibits private duels. Anyone who violates this will immediately lose their enrollment qualification. At the same time, he announced news about Group 34's exam. Group 34 was precisely the group led by Renee. After Renee went to prepare, Prone suddenly walked up to Arsene Adele. "I heard you're a guard for the Bears family. Why don't you abandon that girl and come with me?" With that, she emitted a strange aura around her body. This made her very confident. No one can resist this charm. Let me steal this guy away to dampen that girl's spirits. But as it turned out, Arsene Adele left without looking back, because what he was most curious about at the moment was Renee's true strength. But what surprised everyone was that Renee walked alone to face the Sword Saint from the very beginning, and the aura she emanated was in no way inferior to the Sword Saint's. After some mutual probing, the next second, both launched their attacks simultaneously, but the result shocked everyone present. This was completely an overwhelming victory. Even Ares cast an approving glance. What a useful talent. In contrast, Prone's words were full of disdain. Although it's a pity not to see this girl suffer, but wanting to challenge me with only this level of ability is just normal. Hearing this, Arsene Adele suddenly had a bold idea. If these members could withstand 10% of the Sword Saint's power, then if all 7 Deadly Sins members assembled, might they be able to defeat the real Sword Saint? Prone immediately denied his statement. If the previous Demon King were still alive, it might be possible. But currently there's no one who can defeat the Sword Saint. Besides, whether that fake has even 10% of the real strength is obvious to anyone with eyes. Hearing this, Arsene Adele was suddenly shocked. So he had only barely defeated a fake who didn't even have 10% of the real strength? Although he was the creator of this world, he knew very little about the Demon Realm situation. But this unprecedented excitement and tension still filled him with anticipation for future developments. As the exam continued, only the descendants of the 7 Deadly Sins remained on the field. Perhaps stimulated by Renee's performance, they all defeated the Sword Saint with overwhelming force. However, since the results were all one-sided, it was difficult to directly rank the 7 Deadly Sins members' strength. But Arsene Adele knew in his heart which ones were truly the strongest. Just like that, as the entrance exam ended, Ares also announced the final results. All students who participated in battle, regardless of victory or defeat, pass. Those who gave up midway or withdrew directly are all eliminated. Congratulations to the remaining students. From now on, you are official students of Satan Academy. But don't get too happy too early. What awaits you in the future will be a hellish path full of hardships. Everyone can rest well now. Qualified students, please attend the opening ceremony in 2 days. After announcing the end, he kept the 8 members who had defeated the Sword Saint. Congratulations on passing the exam with excellent results. According to our previous agreement, you will have the opportunity to enter the Armory. Hearing this, an orange-haired boy suddenly raised his hand to ask, "Can we take several weapons? I heard Satan Academy's weapons are all very powerful." Arsene Adele also recognized his identity. Baltan, disciple of the sin of envy, filled with greed and curiosity, was a relatively important character in the novel. To this, Ares gave a negative response. Each person can only enter once and has only one selection opportunity. This is special treatment the Academy gives you. Whether it's good or bad depends on your own luck. Then, Ares activated the Armory, and the door's mechanism also announced the entry order. It would be the reverse order of the second round exam results. This made Arsene Adele feel utterly desperate, meaning he would be last. By then, the Armory probably wouldn't have any good items left. Sure enough, everyone basically chose popular magical items. Even Renee selected a magic bracelet. When it was finally Arsene Adele's turn, Renee informed him in advance about the situation inside. Some items had instruction manuals while others had nothing written. Arsene Adele was very puzzled by this. Was it because those items had no value? But they were all carefully preserved. It shouldn't be like that. So before entering, he asked Ares what items without instructions meant. Ares told him those were items whose owners weren't clear or whose functions were unknown. If you're lucky, you might get something very powerful, but if unlucky, you might be cursed for life. Just like that, with a heart full of anticipation, Arsène Adel entered the Armory. After entering the Armory, a uniquely designed long spear immediately caught his attention. Twin Serpent Spear, a long spear used by an unknown demon when hunting snakes. Injecting a certain amount of magic power will manifest two serpent forms. Although the description sounded impressive, Arsène Adel, who already had Shadow Fang, wasn't moved at all. Then he turned his attention to a round orb. Starlight Gem, a gemstone accessory used by a magician skilled in magic. Injecting a small amount of magic power can use starlight to illuminate surroundings. Arsène Adel shook his head helplessly, as this completely conflicted with his darkness attribute. After this, an empty storage box caught his curiosity. Victor's Great Crown. The wearer will possess excellent recovery and stamina, continuing until the wearer's will dissipates. Seeing this, Arsène Adel looked surprised. It was actually unique magical equipment that wouldn't lose ownership. That Bolton guy really is greedy. Just like that, after examining all items with descriptions, Arsène Adel still hadn't found a weapon to his liking. The buckle for the twin swords was gone. The demon commander's flag was gone. All the useful ones had been taken by the previous guys. But just as he was troubled by this, looking at that broken sword without description, Arsène Adel suddenly thought of a method to ask the oracle. Please tell me information about the broken sword in Satan's armory. But the result was a question requiring payment. Please pay with magical items of ancient grade or above, or 100 or more gold coins. At this, Arsène Adel seemed to understand something. Then he asked again about that damaged cloak without description. Although this was also a question requiring payment, the difference was this time it only required 50 gold coins. This made Arsène Adel immediately clarify his thinking. Since the oracle would state the payment amount, wouldn't it be good to just choose the item with the highest asking price? So he immediately asked in order. But asking all the way down, they were all mediocre equipment. Now he could only place all hope on the last two items. Hard work pays off. This is a magical item of legendary grade or above. Please pay 300 or more gold coins. Seeing this, Arsène Adel was extremely excited. It's actually legendary grade. This might be better than what others chose. But just as he was about to take it, a strange feeling suddenly arose from within. And this feeling came from that item he hadn't asked about. Looking at the utterly ordinary necklace, Arsène Adel ultimately decided to ask about it. But he didn't know until he asked, and was shocked when he did. Please pay with a deity. This made Arsène Adel both happy and confused. Could it be a mythical grade item? But which deity exactly did he need to pay? Currently, he couldn't even reach those demon gods' coattails, let alone surpass them. So what was this necklace's origin? Thinking this, he immediately used magic power to investigate. However, the necklace showed no reaction, so he ultimately placed his hope on the oracle. Please tell me about the deity related to that necklace in Satan's armory, but the response was still, please pay with a deity. Although he couldn't learn its origin and description, Arsène Adel was certain this thing's value absolutely far exceeded any divine artifact. This made the man show an intriguing smile. This necklace really makes one more and more curious. Earlier, seeing Arsène Adel come out of the armory, Ares was very puzzled. What is this necklace? Arsène Adel said it was a necklace without any description, and he didn't know its function or origin either. Ares was full of doubt about this, but ultimately believed Arsène Adel's words. Everyone must carefully preserve your chosen magical items. They might become your lifeline at critical moments. After hearing this, Arsène Adel fell into thought. Besides myself, everyone else here are people who can lead the demon realm. They'll definitely receive massive resources and support in the future. But can I, who has no status whatsoever, really make a name for myself at Satan Academy? Just then, a large hand suddenly interrupted his thoughts. Bolton approached with a friendly expression. Your battle impressed me. Nice to meet you, I'm Bolton. Although Arsène Adel wasn't clear about his purpose, he still showed a standard business smile. Nice to meet you too, Mr. Bolton. I'm Arsène Adel. As soon as he finished speaking, Bolton's expression suddenly turned gloomy. Seeing this scene, Arsène Adel suddenly remembered something. Bolton has always had no interest in the weak. This stems from his jealousy and greed, causing him to only show strong curiosity toward the strong. He once pushed the human world's protagonist to the brink, but after discovering the other's talent, chose to spare his life. In short, he's a natural battle maniac. But what Arsène Adel didn't understand was, with so many strong people around, why did Bolton specifically approach me? With this thought, Arsène Adel designated the longsword behind him as a target and used position transfer. He had intended to use this to escape the battle, but this instead aroused Bolton's strong interest. Indeed, you're strong. How about fighting me right here, until one of us falls? As tensions reached a breaking point, Renée suddenly stepped forward. If you want to challenge my guard, you must get past me first. With that, she drew her long sword and prepared for battle. Seeing this, Bolton had no choice but to give up. I'll spare you this time. After all, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Arsène Adel, I look forward to seeing you again. After resting for a night, Arsène Adel began admiring himself in the mirror. This body's physique really is perfect, but after putting on Satan Academy's uniform, he was even more certain of this thought. Indeed, with a good physique, anything looks good. Just then, he suddenly became curious about how Renee would look in the uniform, so he immediately knocked on Renee's room door. When the door opened, he was completely stunned. "Miss Renee, you're absolutely beautiful." Hearing this, Renee's face instantly turned red with shyness. Seeing this, Arsène Adel tactfully changed the subject. "Today is a rest day. I came to tell you I plan to go look around the city." As he was leaving, Renee suddenly shyly called him back. Did you forget something?" This made Arsène Adel very puzzled, but after hearing the word guard from Renee, Arsène Adel suddenly awakened, then awkwardly expressed his apologies. "The joy of rest went to my head and I actually forgot about this." However, Renee not only didn't blame him but said she wanted to go out with him. Just like that, looking at the thriving street scene, Arsène Adel couldn't help but sigh. It's hard to imagine that a war happened here 10 years ago. The areas around the capital are still undergoing major reconstruction work. It seems that although humans won the war, they still couldn't completely crush the demon realm. Just then, Renee suddenly tugged at his sleeve, then turned her gaze to nearby street stalls. Arsène Adel knowingly bought 2 skewers. Watching Renee's delighted expression, he was also very happy. The usually composed Renee actually showed such an expression. It seems Arsène Adel has completely gained her trust. Just like that, after walking for who knows how long, a giant statue standing in the city center suddenly aroused Arsène Adel's curiosity. Renee told him this was the first Demon King, Diana. But when Arsène Adel wanted to get closer for a detailed look, the statue's eyes suddenly flashed with light, and the necklace on his body resonated with it. At the same time, one of the gems turned gray. Just then, Renee's voice suddenly pulled him back to reality. "Arsène Adel, why did you take out your magical item?" But when Arsène Adel looked at the statue again with confusion, it seemed like nothing had happened. This made him immediately certain of his suspicion. Indeed, only I saw it. And this necklace must be related to the first Demon King. Really makes one more and more curious. The day after rest ended, Arsène Adel and Renee came to the auditorium holding the opening ceremony. But what the new students didn't expect was that the seemingly cute little girl on stage was actually Satan Academy's principal. But Arsène Adel scoffed at this. With a child's appearance but covered in tattoos, where's the cuteness in that? However, as soon as he finished speaking, Lucien shot him a sharp look. This startled Arsène Adel. I didn't expect her to have mind-reading abilities too. Just then, Ares suddenly announced the start of the opening ceremony. After Lucien's mundane speech ended, next came the oath-taking ceremony for the valedictorian and salutatorian. As Arsène Adel expected, the valedictorian and salutatorian were Diana and Bolton, who had outstanding abilities. When Diana walked to the podium, all the men's gazes were instantly attracted by her stunning beauty. As the oath-taking voices continued to rise, the atmosphere in the auditorium gradually became serious. At the same time, Arsène Adel could clearly feel everyone's anger at humans for taking away their homeland and relatives. This made his heart tremble. If it's exposed that I have Arsène family bloodline, I'll definitely suffer cruel eternal punishment. Soon after the oath ended, Ares notified everyone to check the bulletin board for their class assignments, then immediately enter classrooms to prepare for lessons. After careful examination, Renee was assigned to Class C, while Arsène Adel was assigned to Class A. Arsène Adel pretended to express regret about this, but Renee saw right through him. "Don't think you'll have it easy by getting rid of me. Remember, you're my guard. If I have problems, you must come anytime." After Renee left, before Arsène Adel could be happy for even 2 seconds, a man suddenly bumped heavily into his shoulder. "Do you want to die? Don't you have eyes when walking?" After seeing the other's appearance clearly, Arsène Adel was suddenly shocked. Samuel, descendant of the violent Varus family. From what he knew, Samuel was quite a formidable character among the 7 deadly sins descendants. Although unclear why he was picking a fight, considering the current situation, Arsène Adel still proactively admitted his mistake. Meanwhile, a heated argument was taking place in the principal's office. "Senior, I'm now also an official Satan Academy teacher. Are you questioning my abilities?" Ares denied this, but that child is too dangerous. "From experience, it's more stable for me to manage him." Female instructor Idea argued with reason. "Arsène Adel has already been assigned to Class A, so he should be my responsibility." Just then, Lucien suddenly interrupted both of them and asked Ares about his reason for wanting to change responsible classes. Ares told the truth. "I want to personally discipline student Arsène Adel. I've seen too many people like him on the battlefield. He carries the traits of a killing beast. He might suddenly lose his reason and draw his blade against comrades, so he must be properly guided now." The other instructors disagreed with this. "Aren't you overthinking? Compared to other 7 deadly sins descendants, his strength is obviously much lower." Ares immediately denied it. Strength isn't determined solely by power. The bold and composed demeanor he displayed during the exam was no less impressive than those from the 7 deadly sins. That's precisely why I want to go to Class A, and Arsene Adel requires special attention. Before he could finish speaking, Idea angrily interrupted him. In the end, you still think I'm unreliable, don't you? Seeing this situation, Lucien sighed helplessly. Then a terrifying pressure suddenly erupted from within her body, instantly silencing the room. I've understood Instructor Aries' opinion, but the class assignments have already been finalized, and there's no need to change them. So please, Instructor Idea, keep a close eye on student Arsene Adel. Meanwhile, Arsene Adel sat in the classroom with a look of despair on his face, although fortunately he wasn't in the same class as Diana and Bolton. Why did it have to be these two guys? In contrast, Prone was quite satisfied with this arrangement. It seems we really do have quite the fate together, so I'll grant you the honor of being my slave here. At this moment, Samuel suddenly interrupted. If you keep annoying me, I'll kill both of you. Hearing this, Prone wasn't to be outdone either. A snot-nosed little brat, I'll kill you right now. Just as tensions were reaching a breaking point, the classroom door suddenly opened. The person entering was none other than Instructor Idea. I could hear you arguing from outside. Fighting on the first day won't do. After saying this, she began introducing herself with a kind expression. I'm Instructor Idea, responsible for Class A, and also a member of the Calamity Legion. Upon hearing this, the students began discussing among themselves. Could this be the Calamity Legion that single-handedly slaughtered 10,000 humans at the Pollux River? Hearing this, Arsene Adel breathed a long sigh of relief. With such a formidable instructor, wouldn't his chances of survival be higher? Subsequently, Idea began explaining the future teaching methods. That would be hunting techniques. But this isn't ordinary hunting of magical beasts or wild animals. It's hunting humans. Besides that, basic physical training will also be my responsibility. Now, let's head to the training ground for our first lesson. Soon after everyone assembled, Idea immediately summoned a magical teleportation portal. And the next second, dozens of human soldiers emerged from the portal. Seeing everyone's shocked expressions, Idea gestured for them not to be nervous. These aren't real humans, but illusions I created with magic. And the previous Sword Saint was also my creation. This startled Arsene Adel internally. Magic that could replicate nearly 10% of a Sword Saint's power. This person was completely a monster. Satan Academy possessed formidable strength, and even more outstanding was Imperial Academy. Just thinking about it sent chills down one's spine. At this moment, Idea announced the course rules. Among humans, there are commanders who serve as both spiritual pillars and leaders. Once humans lose their commander, they'll collapse like dominoes in an instant. So, I will play the role of the human side's commander, and everyone just needs to find a way to touch me to pass. After saying this, she locked her gaze on Arsene Adel. Let's start with you. Just like what you did to the Sword Saint, come and stab my neck. Hearing this, Arsene Adel immediately understood. Wasn't this the so-called capture the king first? Attacking their leader among so many human soldiers was too simple for him. Arsene Adel immediately used position transfer, and before Idea could react. The next second, a short sword was pressed against her neck. It turned out that before making his move, Arsene Adel had precisely calculated the distance to his target, although initially he could only move a few short meters. With his current growth rate, this distance was no problem. At this, Idea was first startled, then showed an intriguing smile. Now I finally understand why Instructor Aries wanted me to pay special attention to you. This left Arsene Adel puzzled. He didn't know if it was due to hostility or interest. But why were they so wary of him? Could they have already discovered his true identity? At this moment, Idea publicly announced that Arsene Adel had passed. At the same time, she told everyone that if they failed this training, they would need to attend supplementary courses. Upon hearing this, the students who followed were even more determined. Seeing this, Arsene Adel couldn't help but sigh, truly worthy of being demons. Everyone's abilities are quite impressive. But soon he was shocked by what happened next. Under Instructor Idea's personal command, the human soldiers who had been scattered like sand the moment before suddenly became organized in attack and defense. As students fell one after another, a bold idea formed in Arsene Adel's mind. If things continued like this, perhaps he could even vie for the position of class number 1. But the next student to appear immediately shattered his illusion. That person was Samuel. Samuel's body instantly burst forth with green magical power, and in an instant, that power condensed into a massive whirlwind. Seeing this scene, Arsene Adel was utterly shocked. Jewel, Samuel's unique talent, a terrifying ability that could instantly devour everything. It seemed that Arsene Adel would have to temporarily give up his position as class number 1. But just then, as the smoke slowly dissipated, Idea's figure appeared unharmed before everyone's eyes. This instant performance was truly surprising, but unfortunately, you still failed. As she spoke, she snapped her fingers, and the next second, countless human soldiers appeared behind her. If you don't eliminate the commander, no matter how many humans you kill, someone will fill that vacancy. However, as a first-year student, the power of this magic is quite impressive. Although Samuel's face was full of dissatisfaction, he ultimately accepted the result obediently. But Arsene Adel was very clear in his heart. that Samuel's weakness was being too confident in his own abilities. If he could focus solely on the target, he should have been able to pass easily. After this, it was finally Prone's turn to appear, but compared to everyone's expectations, Arsene Adel had already predicted the outcome. Because as a child of desire, she wouldn't fight personally. Just like a queen bee only commands her subordinates. Without subordinates, she could do nothing. As expected, Prone was now looking at the soldiers before her with a panicked expression. In desperation, she suddenly thought of Arsene Adel behind her. "Save me quickly, my slave." Upon hearing this, the students began discussing among themselves, but Arsene Adel remained unmoved. At the same time, Instructor Idea also issued the attack command. Hearing the wails coming from nearby, Arsene Adel was speechless. Could it be that she couldn't even cast enhancement magic on herself? Or was there some hidden circumstance? Just then, a scene beside him suddenly caught his attention. The wound that had been injured the moment before was completely healed the next second. This shocked Arsene Adel completely. Healing magic. This ability was unique to humans. Could this girl also be a half-demon? With this thought, he immediately made up his mind, although he hadn't remembered her name, to be classmates with someone possessing rare healing magic. He had to find an opportunity to build a relationship with her no matter what. Just as he was about to approach and strike up a conversation, Instructor Idea suddenly gathered everyone together. The training session ends here. Although the results were as expected, this is everyone's first lesson after all. It's important to understand your own strength level through such experiences, knowing where you made mistakes and what limitations you have. Only by accurately understanding these and complementing each other can you complete a perfect battle. At this point, she suddenly called out Arsene Adel's name. "Arsene Adel, you're the only student who passed the training session. I look forward to your future performance." Arsene Adel politely expressed his gratitude, but at the same time, he felt the cold gazes of his classmates. This filled him with worry about his future path at the academy. People here wanted to fight whenever they had free time and always treated others as slaves. He really didn't know if he could successfully build his influence. After Instructor Idea's training session ended, other courses began to unfold systematically. In theory classes, they learned about the history of magic rings and human weaknesses. As the instructor announced the end of class, Arsene Adel immediately slumped onto his desk in exhaustion. It was simply unbearable. How was this any different from school back then? But what made him even more miserable was, whether before or now, he still didn't have a single friend. Just then, he suddenly noticed the girl who was also being ignored by everyone. To build a good relationship with her, Arsene Adel took the initiative to greet her. However, just as he finished introducing his name, the surrounding classmates cast strange looks at them. This surprised Arsene Adel greatly. He hadn't expected that half-demons would attract so much attention no matter what they did. So after chatting briefly, he decided to go outside for some fresh air. However, just as he reached the door, he encountered the person he least wanted to see. At the same time, seeing Arsene Adel, Samuel's face immediately showed a disgusted expression. "What a nauseating inferior mongrel." Hearing this, Arsene Adel immediately retorted, "Your family is truly remarkable, sending out trash like you who spouts garbage from your mouth." This made Samuel instantly furious, and then terrifying magical power burst forth from his body. At this moment, Arsene Adel also prepared for battle. If he would become an obstacle in his plans, then it would be better to deal with him here. Just as tensions reached a breaking point, a voice suddenly stopped both of them. "Class is about to start, everyone please return to your seats." Seeing this, both were shocked, not only because they didn't know when this person had entered, but also because he had somehow neutralized their abilities. This made Arsene Adel wonder, what was this instructor's background? It turned out the man was named Robolt, the magic course instructor for Class A. In fantasy worlds, the first thing people think of is magic. In novels, magical talent and characteristics are completely different categories. From a certain perspective, magic can also be classified as an academic field. First, there's one thing you must know to learn magic, and that's attributes. Attributes are based on the 4 basic elements of earth, water, wind, and fire, plus light and darkness, making a total of 6 basic attributes. Most people only have 1 attribute. So the purpose of this magic class is to understand each student's magical attributes. As he spoke, Robolt took out a mysterious magic orb. Everyone just needs to place their hand on this orb, and we can determine your attribute through color changes. As the testing proceeded in order, some students were detected as fire attribute, others as earth attribute. Soon it was finally Arsene Adel's turn. However, as soon as Arsene Adel placed his hand on the magic orb, the orb immediately underwent strange changes. This shocked Robolt completely. This is extremely rare. Besides the black representing the dark attribute of high-level demons, the other half's gray color was something even he had never heard of. Although the novel mentioned gray light, Arsene Adel only remembered it was called chaos, a rare magical attribute that defied common sense. But regardless, now that the dark attribute had been confirmed, he would start by researching this area in depth. Just then, Prone quietly approached behind Arsene Adel. But Arsene Adel, who had already sensed her presence, suddenly turned around and startled her. What are you doing hiding behind me? Prone sternly questioned. What exactly are you thinking? Why did you have to provoke that guy? Was it just because he didn't suit your taste? But no matter what, you shouldn't have brought his family into it. However, Arsene Adel remained calm and composed. External forces can't enter Satan Academy anyway, and besides, he was the one who started the trouble. Hearing this, Prone sighed helplessly. Don't you know about that guy's family? At this point, she suddenly hesitated to continue. Fine, never mind. No matter what, you need to be more careful in the future. This left Arsene Adel puzzled. What was she trying to express? Could it be that Samuel's family had cruel methods of revenge, so she came to warn me specifically? But it somehow didn't feel like that was the case. As Arsene Adel pondered, a deafening roar suddenly brought him back to reality. The person who arrived was sword instructor Ares. You're all too weak. If you want me to teach you swordsmanship, you must properly complete the upcoming courses. In the past, you wouldn't even have had the qualification to sit here. Facing puppets displaying less than 10% of their power, only 8 teams barely passed the exam. So if you want me to teach you swordsmanship, you must complete the tasks I assign. Shortly after, Ares led everyone to the field to run laps. The foundation of swordsmanship is stamina. Techniques supported by stamina can increase power by 2 to 3 times. After the students ran 50 laps, the course finally came to an end. Besides having the students return to their assigned dormitories to rest, Ares specifically kept 2 people for supplementary courses, those being Prone and Samuel, who had cheated by using magic power during the laps. Scene transition on Arsene Adel's way to the dormitory. A small hand suddenly tapped his shoulder. When he turned around, he discovered it was Renee. Seeing Renee's gloomy expression, Arsene Adel couldn't help but fall into thought. Could it be that some classmate had provoked her? But the situation could easily lead to misunderstandings. With this thought, he immediately inquired, Miss Renee, are you also heading back to the dormitory? How were your first day's classes? Renee responded indifferently. The training wasn't adequate. Why don't you accompany me for some additional exercise? Although Arsene Adel was already physically and mentally exhausted, thinking that training with a child of the 7 deadly sins should be helpful even if difficult. Thus, under Renee's guidance, they arrived at the equipment room. Looking at the barbell Renee pointed to, Arsene Adel immediately tried to show off. But even using all his strength, the barbell remained completely unmoved, just as he was complaining about his weak body. Renee easily lifted it up. In his surprise, Arsene Adel became even more determined in his thoughts. Pure strength alone indeed couldn't compete with her. It seemed he had to work even harder. 2 hours later, the training finally ended. While Renee was changing clothes, Arsene Adel curiously checked his status window. But compared to this period of training, he had only increased his magic power by 24 points. However, this was indeed the most difficult stage for improvement. It seemed he needed to find some elixirs to consume. Shortly after, Arsene Adel, having parted ways with Renee, finally found his assigned dormitory. But he felt expectant. Who would his roommate be? If it was someone with both ability and good character, it wouldn't be bad to recruit them to his side. With this thought, Arsene Adel excitedly opened the door. But when he saw his roommate's appearance, he was immediately startled. Why was it Samuel? After spending 2.5 minutes in awkward coexistence, Arsene Adel suddenly stood up. Seeing this, Samuel also hurriedly rose. What? Have you decided you're ready to fight me? However, Arsene Adel indicated he was just going out for some fresh air. Outside, Arsene Adel was puzzled. Why was that guy who didn't understand how to control his anger so furious? Then he suddenly thought of something. Samuel was a child of violence. Could there be some similarity with my chaos attribute? With this thought, he immediately decided to seek answers from the oracle. But soon he dismissed this idea. Instructor Robolt would probably figure this out too, so he could get the answer from him later, couldn't he? Just then, a sparrow's chirping suddenly caught Arsene Adel's attention, which surprised him greatly. He hadn't expected Satan Academy to have external life forms active here. How interesting! Time came to deep night. Arsene Adel finally quietly returned to the dormitory. Seeing the sleeping Samuel, he also relaxed his guard and lay down on the bed. But just as he unknowingly fell asleep, a figure quietly approached his side. It was Samuel. This face really makes me feel disgusted just looking at it. Moreover, he dared to insult my family. Even if I was wrong first, I shouldn't have to apologize proactively. With this thought, he immediately turned and sighed. There were clearly many important things to do. Did he really need to worry about this insignificant guy? But thinking of the aura Arsene Adel displayed during training, his heart felt as if it was being gripped, aching faintly. This pain not only reminded him of past experiences, but also made his body begin to tremble uncontrollably. Damn it! Why do I have the urge to eat again? This feeling of internal organs sticking together was simply unbearable. With this thought, Samuel turned his gaze back to the sleeping Arsene Adel. Not only was he hungry, but he had to look at that disgusting face all night. He really wanted to punch him in the face. The next morning, when Arsene Adel woke up, he found only himself in the room. Just then, a familiar sound suddenly caught his attention. When he walked to the window, he discovered it was the same sparrow from yesterday. This immediately aroused several suspicions in his mind. Satan, which was so sensitive to external intrusions, could actually let other life forms in. It seemed someone was deliberately trying to monitor me. Could it be Instructor Aries? Shortly after in class, Idea announced something important. Today, they would determine the class president. At this, a student immediately asked about the election rules. Idea told everyone that she had originally planned to select candidates through voting, but I've changed my mind temporarily because I already have the best candidate for class president in mind, and that is... Before she could finish, Prone suddenly stood up confidently. You've thought this through so well, instructor. I will definitely lead this class well from now on, and everyone should follow my orders. Seeing this, Arsene Adele wasn't surprised, because in his novel, Prone was indeed the class president candidate. Although her intelligence was somewhat lacking, her charisma in leading teams and her enhancement abilities were top tier. At this time, students also began discussing. Although Arsene Adele is a half-demon, his abilities seem quite good too. Samuel is also very capable, but he always gives people a feeling that makes them afraid to approach. Hearing this, Arsene Adele couldn't help but feel secretly pleased. He hadn't expected his name to be mentioned too. Could it be that his performance in training class had impressed everyone? But regardless, the class president position basically belonged to Prone now. Just then, Idea suddenly gestured for everyone to be quiet. The class president is not student Prone. Our class A's president is student Arsene Adele. Upon hearing this, Prone was shocked. Even Arsene Adele felt very surprised. This was completely unreasonable. Why would Instructor Idea appoint a half-demon as class president? What was she thinking? Idea then continued to instruct. To prepare for this semester's midterm exam, the upcoming courses will focus mainly on practical exercises. Practical exercises will be conducted in groups of 3 people. So please form your teams by today. Hearing this, Arsene Adele suddenly remembered something. If the midterm exam and practical exercises were held at Satan, a bloody scene would likely unfold. After Idea left the classroom, Arsene Adele couldn't help but fall into thought. Setting aside the roster issue, did Satan Academy have a suitable place for practical exercises, or would they practice using puppets made by Instructor Idea? But soon, he dismissed this idea. If that were the case, there would be no need to specifically form groups. But looking at the novel's timeline, now wasn't yet the time for terrorist attacks on the human world. Unable to figure it out, Arsene Adele immediately shifted his focus to the present, and he already had the best suitable teammates in mind. Meanwhile, upon learning the news, Aries angrily sought out Idea. What were you thinking? Actually giving the class president position to that guy? Don't you know what this means? Idea immediately stood up and responded, I naturally know. Doesn't it just mean temporarily handing over Class A's command authority? Hearing Aries immediately threaten, change the class president to another student right now. Otherwise, you'll bear the consequences. But Idea was unconcerned. I quite admire that child. Not only is his ability top tier, but he's also not as arrogant as those children of the 7 deadly sins. Besides, he's a guard of the bear's family, so his identity must be guaranteed. Aries immediately retorted, even if his identity is guaranteed, it doesn't mean he's trustworthy. Because nothing is more dangerous than a blindfolded blade. Hearing this, Idea sighed deeply. In any case, I'll handle the class I'm responsible for. Although I'm a new instructor, I'm quite confident in my ability to judge people. Watching Idea's departing figure, Aries immediately made up his mind. No matter what, I must take over that class. That dangerous guy shouldn't have been entrusted to Idea in the first place. Most importantly, that half-demon who once left me with unforgettable memories in battle had an extremely similar aura to Arsene Adele. Both gave people the same chilling feeling. Although the possibility of him being that guy's blood relative was minimal, leaving it unattended was still too unsettling. With this thought, he immediately blew his whistle. Soon, a sparrow came chirping over. But to Aries' disappointment, he didn't get any useful information from the sparrow. Even so, he still didn't dare to be negligent. That guy is definitely not simple. Meanwhile, students were all busy with team formation. However, Arsene Adele, as the class president, was ignored by everyone, so he immediately decided to take the initiative, and his first target was the half-demon girl who shared his plight. Seeing Arsene Adele's strange expression, the girl was immediately startled. This made Arsene Adele wonder, did I scare her when I used magic power to investigate just now? But her magic power value is quite high, and she has rare healing abilities. If I could team up with her, it would be perfect. With this thought, he immediately extended a team invitation to the girl. My name is Arsene Adele. May I ask what your name is? If you haven't found teammates yet, would you be willing to join my team? After thinking for a few seconds, although the girl told him, my name is Luna, she hadn't made a decision about the team invitation. Seeing this, Arsene Adele again activated his magic power and moved close to her. Miss Luna, there's little time left before the team formation deadline. Since we're both half-demons, I believe we'll get along very well. However, just as Luna fearfully chose to join, Prone's voice suddenly came over. It seems you haven't found teammates yet. In that case, why don't you both come to my side? Although Arsène Adel was very reluctant, he had no choice but to agree, and he even made a deal with her. He could give up the team leader position, but any decisions about actions must follow his arrangements. This way, he could save Prone's face while making a child of the 7 deadly sins obediently listen, truly killing 2 birds with 1 stone. A week later, looking at his slowly increasing magic power, Arsène Adel was troubled. It seemed he had to find elixirs quickly, and the magic attribute was also a problem. He couldn't master this chaos at all. Fortunately, during this period, Samuel hadn't initiated any conflicts. The next day in class, Idea announced something to the students. They would conduct their first outdoor internship, leaving Satan to go to Oregon. But compared to the students' curiosity and excitement, Arsène Adel was both shocked and expectant. Although Oregon was a prison holding humans captured during the Human-Demon War and imprisoned in the Demon Realm, there was something more important than the internship there. And before long, the protagonist group would find a special opportunity there. If he went this time, Arsène Adel might be able to obtain it first. But what troubled him was how he could avoid his teammates' sight and the guards' eyes when the time came. Just then, Prone's voice suddenly interrupted his thoughts. Are you nervous? Looking at your gloomy appearance, I thought you wouldn't get nervous. But with me as the team leader, you just need to follow me. Shortly after, the students finally embarked on their journey to Oregon. Facing this rare opportunity, Arsène Adel secretly swore that no matter what happened, he would obtain that opportunity. After the students successfully arrived at Oregon, a rushing sinister aura immediately caused the students to panic. Idea gestured for everyone not to worry. This was just a prison holding human captives, and no battles would occur. But Arsène Adel thought otherwise. Knowing what would happen, she still comforted everyone like this. What a twisted sense of humor. Just then, 3 guards suddenly emerged from inside. From their aura alone, Arsène Adel could sense that these people were on par with instructor Idea in strength. Soon, after confirming the students' identities, the lead guard invited everyone inside. As the students went deeper inside, waves of wailing and pleading gradually reached everyone's ears. But compared to the other students' panicked reactions, Arsène Adel and Samuel appeared particularly calm. Soon the students successfully reached the internship site, and everyone truly saw Oregon's hell-like appearance. At this moment, Idea suddenly spoke. As you can see, this prison holds all the vicious criminals who have killed demons. I'm sure everyone is very curious about this internship's theme. I will now demonstrate personally for everyone. As she spoke, her body immediately emanated terrifying demonic energy. In an instant, that energy condensed into a magic sphere. After forcibly shoving the sphere into a prisoner's mouth, the next second, that person's head exploded instantly. This caused the witnessing students to vomit. But Arsène Adel not only felt no discomfort, but became even more determined. Even if he had to do more cruel things than this, his goal wouldn't change. That was to survive to the end in this world, correct the ending, and fulfill Arsène Adel's revenge wish. Subsequently, Idea announced this internship's theme, killing a human prisoner according to her method. Hearing this, Arsène Adel, as class president, took the lead. Facing the prisoner's curses and insults, Arsène Adel delivered a fatal blow without hesitation. Seeing this scene, Idea immediately applauded. But before having the other students practice, she separately grouped the half-demon personnel in the class together. Like the class president, you all must kill designated half-demon traitors. Because I need you all to prove that you're different from these traitors. After announcing the start of the internship, sounds of killing and pleading echoed throughout the prison. Among them, Samuel, who harbored deep hatred for humans, performed particularly excitedly, using the most cruel methods to tear prisoners into pieces. But what worried Arsène Adel most was that Luna, also a half-demon, hadn't made a move yet. If this continued, once instructor Idea targeted her, the consequences would be unimaginable. Just then, Prone's voice suddenly came from behind Idea. I just need to use my own ability to kill someone, right? After receiving Idea's affirmative response, Prone didn't choose to act personally but activated charm magic, staging a scene of fellow tribesmen killing each other. This completely surprised Arsène Adel. Prone, who also deeply hated humans, had chosen to be soft-hearted in such circumstances. Soon after most people completed their internship, Idea turned her attention to Luna, who hadn't acted yet. Student Luna, now only you remain. If you can't complete this internship, I have every reason to suspect who you really are. This made cold sweat break out on Arsène Adel's forehead. However, Luna's face still showed complete resistance, while continuously murmuring, I can't do it. I absolutely can't do it. Please just let me leave this place. I'm so pathetic. I'm truly pathetic. I chose to enter this academy to avenge my mother who was hurt by her human father, but now I can't do anything at all. Just then, Arsène Adel suddenly approached Luna and publicly offered to help her complete her internship. While Luna was shocked, Arsène Adel placed the Shadow Fang in her hands. I know you're scared, but now you just need to keep moving forward. With a painful grunt, Adele immediately patted her head to comfort her. That was almost a disaster. It's easy to imagine what punishment a half-demon who can't kill humans would face. If she's lucky, she'd be expelled from the academy, otherwise she might face even worse consequences. But Adele's actions still drew questioning from Idea. Do you think killing someone this way counts as passing? Adele affirmed. Student Luna has already passed the test. Didn't you say that as long as one uses their own abilities to kill, it counts as passing? Student Luna is the only healing ability user in Satan Academy. It's precisely because I know the value of her abilities that I chose to help her. On the contrary, if she had no talent, I would have decisively chosen to abandon her. Upon hearing this, Idea showed a satisfied smile. You really like to mess around, but don't let it happen again. Watching Idea's departing figure, Adele breathed a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, this answer coincided with Idea's thoughts, but if it were Ares, it definitely wouldn't work. Just then, Luna, who learned she had escaped disaster, suddenly collapsed on the spot. After seeing that Luna had fainted, Adele showed an intriguing smile. Finally, it's time to search for the hidden opportunity. Following the novel's content, he soon arrived near the basement where the opportunity was located. But facing the increasingly strict security, he immediately activated his dark magic to envelop his entire body. However, just as he was stealthily taking action, the guard suddenly stopped and looked back. After seeing that he hadn't discovered anything unusual, Adele breathed a long sigh of relief, truly worthy of being Oregon's guard, to be able to detect such subtle differences. Soon Adele finally found the passage leading to the basement, but just after using position transfer to reach inside the passage, he was immediately startled. There were pressure trap devices on the ground, but quickly Adele thought of a countermeasure. He then took out the Shadow Fang and threw it toward the basement. After hearing the collision sound between the Shadow Fang and the ground, he immediately used position transfer to instantly arrive at the basement. Next was dealing with those black slimes with poison attributes. But for Adele, who had a god's eye view, this was simply effortless. After using their weaknesses to successfully eliminate all the blocking slimes, Adele jumped into the water without hesitation. But just then, a warning suddenly entered his mind. Don't continue down. The giant crocodile died at the bottom of the water. This confused Adele greatly. He had never written any content about giant crocodiles. This is where rebellious demons from hundreds of years ago sleep. Could the giant crocodile be a demon that even the Demon King couldn't kill and could only seal here? But even so, Adele didn't choose to give up. After successfully reaching shore, he saw the hidden opportunity as he wished, which was the heart in the chest of the white bones before him. However, just as he was about to obtain it, the lifeless heart suddenly began beating violently. This terrified Adele. How? How could this happen? In his shock, the white bones before him suddenly shot up into the sky, while a brilliant crest appeared behind it. Adele immediately recognized it as the symbol of the Arson family. This made him wonder, could the traitor of the demon realm be related to the Arson family? Just then, a voice suddenly entered his mind. Child of the Arson family, please listen to my voice. After receiving Adele's sincere reply, the white bones were immediately stunned. You can hear my evil thoughts? This means you bear the same karma as I do. Child with the power of chaos, never let this power devour you. The chaotic world is a force that twists rules. If you're consumed by chaos and only focus on meaning, you'll eventually end up like me. With that, he turned into smoke and dissipated in midair, leaving only that heart to fall steadily to the ground. When Adele picked up the heart, a will craving destruction instantly flowed into his body. Later, when he opened his status screen, he found that his traits now included telekinesis. But when he tried to activate it, after less than 2 seconds, the Shadow Fang lost control and fell to the ground. But despite this, Adele was still extremely excited. It seems he needs more practice. Soon after returning to the internship site, Luna, who had awakened, immediately came forward to express her gratitude. Adele said there was no need to be polite, but in his heart, he had already made plans. He would definitely make good use of this favor owed to him in the future. After the outdoor internship ended, Idea gathered everyone together. I'm very satisfied with this assessment. Although you still need to continue honing yourselves, everyone's eyes have finally become harder. A week later, through outdoor training, the students had obviously reduced their fear. Adele's telekinesis had also improved tremendously through constant practice. Next was preparing for the midterm exam that the instructors often mentioned. In the novel, the timing of Satan Academy's first-year midterm exam coincided with Imperial Academy's attack. This also meant that the content of the midterm exam would very likely be invading the human realm. Thinking of this, Adele couldn't help but feel melancholy. By then, who knows how many students in the class would survive. But when he turned his gaze toward Luna's direction, he found her staring at him with a troubled expression. Driven by curiosity, he gently poked Luna's shoulder. Upon seeing it was Adele, Luna's little face couldn't help but blush. Seeing this, Adele immediately showed concern. Your complexion looks bad. Did something happen? After receiving Luna's negative response, Adele suggested having lunch together. This made Luna's heart bloom with joy. Oh, okay, let's meet at the cafeteria entrance. Soon, when the agreed time arrived, Arsene Adel couldn't find Luna anywhere. However, just as he was about to return to his dormitory to practice, he was startled by two people walking toward him. The arrivals were Renee and Diana. At this, Arsene Adel quickly used position swap to hide. But Renee always felt something was strange. She clearly seemed to have seen a guard's figure just now. Could she have been mistaken? Little did she know that Arsene Adel was currently hiding behind nearby bushes, trembling. And his behavior was all because of what his classmates had said. The Arsene family played a decisive role in the demon's defeat. Most importantly, they also killed the Demon King and the Demon King's wife. If Diana knew he was a descendant of the Arsene family, he would definitely be doomed. Having thus escaped disaster, Arsene Adel breathed a long sigh of relief. But what he didn't expect was that there was such a quiet place behind the academy cafeteria. Just as he was about to practice here, a familiar voice suddenly reached his ears. Following the sound, he found Luna desperately pleading with the man beside her, "Please don't do this." Upon hearing Luna's pleas for mercy, a cold demonic power immediately burst forth from within Arsene Adel. "What are you doing to our classmate?" Hearing this, the green-haired man snorted coldly. "You half-demon dare to protect her. Today let me see what real skills you, the class leader, actually have." As he spoke, a burst of magic power instantly struck, then effortlessly dragged him into mid-air. Compared to the shock of the other two, Arsene Adel's heart was filled with speechlessness. To think that just a little killing intent and magic power could knock someone down. How boring. But soon he noticed something was off. This guy is too calm for a student. Not only does he show no fear, but he's actually observing me. Even so, Arsene Adel still issued a final warning. "If you don't get lost now, your internal organs will have to stay here." However, just as the group was leaving, the tattooed man cast a cold glance in his direction. This gave Arsene Adel a headache. It seems besides Samuel, there's another troublemaker. He'll have to be more careful in the future. Just then, Luna's voice suddenly interrupted his thoughts. "Arsene Adel, are you okay?" After hearing Arsene Adel's response that he was fine, watching his departing figure, Luna's little face couldn't help but flush with embarrassment. Soon after returning to class, magic instructor Robolt immediately explained the main content of this lesson to the students. How to use invisibility magic in actual situations. If you want to defeat opponents stronger than you on the battlefield, the only answer is assassination. So for all of you, invisibility magic isn't a choice. It's a required course. With that, he personally demonstrated. First, slowly heat the tattoo, then release circulating magic power. Although everyone's magic purity is currently very low. As long as you can thinly wrap your entire body, the invisibility spell will succeed. Having said this, Robolt's figure instantly disappeared before everyone's eyes. After the successful demonstration, the students began practicing according to the steps. Watching everyone's earnest efforts, Robolt was very pleased. But at the same time, he was well aware that invisibility magic wasn't something that could be mastered in a day. But after seeing the magical effects displayed by Prone and Samuel, Robolt was amazed. Truly worthy of being descendants of the 7 deadly sins, these two's figures were actually beginning to blur. But the next second, he suddenly thought of something. Wasn't there supposed to be a student even more outstanding than these two? Arsene Adel, with the chaos attribute that instructor Ares was particularly wary of. But when he looked toward Arsene Adel's seat, he was immediately shocked. How is this possible? He was just in his seat a moment ago. He actually evaded my eyes. After easily learning invisibility magic through his own abilities, Arsene Adel began thinking about how to connect invisibility magic with the chaos attribute, because he knew that ordinary assassination abilities were useless against truly strong opponents. Just then, Robolt suddenly called him over. "Student Arsene Adel, is this your first time learning magic at Satan Academy?" Arsene Adel confirmed, "But I've had some exclusive talents from the beginning." After understanding the reason, Robolt invited him to the research lab. "Your magical talent is outstanding, and you possess the rare chaos attribute. This is something very worth studying." Although Arsene Adel declined his invitation, he still promised to find Robolt after finishing his business. Thus, after returning to his dormitory, taking advantage of Samuel's absence, Arsene Adel immediately decided to develop a technique that surpassed invisibility magic before the midterm exam. After all, he was a human spy hiding in the demon realm for survival. If either side knew his true identity, he would definitely not escape being hunted. So before that, he had to develop a technique, not only to hide himself but to make people completely unable to sense his existence, his trump card. However, just as he was about to succeed, an accident occurred. A strange pain swept through his entire body. When he tried to interrupt the magic, he found his body was already powerless. Fortunately, his magic power was completely depleted at this moment, and the invisibility spell was forcibly interrupted. But even so, Arsene Adel was still shaken by what had just happened. That feeling was too terrifying. If his magic power hadn't been depleted, he would have truly lost himself. Thinking of this, he completely understood the skeleton's warning, although he had successfully developed a new technique combining chaos attributes with invisibility magic. If used improperly, Arsene Adel could very well be devoured by the power of chaos. However, just as he was naming this new technique absolute invisibility, a figure suddenly kicked him to the ground. After seeing it was Samuel, Facing his endless cursing, Adel couldn't hear his voice at all. This made him wonder, have I lost my hearing? After another week of repeated research, although he didn't lose his hearing this time, he couldn't see anything ahead, at all. This made Adel completely understand. It seemed that whenever he used absolute invisibility, he would lose 1 or 2 senses, even though it would recover after 2 hours. Thinking that this skill only lasted 3 seconds gave him another headache. The risk was simply too great. It seemed he could only use it when he absolutely had to kill someone. Moments later, Adel came to Ares' classroom. But what he couldn't understand was why Ares, as a swordsmanship instructor, never taught swordsmanship. Just then, Ares suddenly called for everyone to stop, and announced the news of reducing physical training to begin learning swordsmanship. This filled Adel with anticipation. Finally going to learn swordsmanship! After this, Ares immediately drew his long sword, and pointed it at Adel. Now let the class leader demonstrate with me. After Adel stepped forward, Ares had him infuse magic power into his sword, while he would use no magic power at all. Hearing this, Adel immediately drew out the Shadow Fang, then infused magic power into the blade, and with a quick step, charged forward. Facing Adel's fierce offensive, Ares could not only easily resolve it, but also directly repel him with just one sword strike. This shocked Adel's heart. No flaws at all. Although the demon realm doesn't rank swordsmen, by human standards he would definitely be master level. But this feeling of being looked down upon always made Adel uncomfortable. So he charged forward with his sword again, but unlike last time, he first aimed for Ares' carotid artery. After Ares dodged, Adel suddenly turned his blade, and the next second directly struck Ares in the chest. However, this strike not only failed to cause any harm to him, but Ares also seized the opportunity to slam him to the ground. Seeing the outcome was decided, Ares, having lost his reason, actually raised his long sword again. Witnessing the scene, the students were all shocked, and even Adel sensed trouble. He might die if this continues. Seeing this situation, the students were all puzzled. Why had a simple sparring demonstration turned into such a situation? But what was even more amazing was that Adel survived unharmed, but even so he was still shaken. If he hadn't used telekinesis to push the sword aside in time, he would probably have been cut in half by now. Thinking of this, he immediately voiced his confusion. Were you planning to kill me? Ares not only didn't respond directly but actually changed the subject. Class leader, what did you feel in this match? Adel responded about the way to victory. In life and death combat, to achieve victory one must sacrifice flesh to take bone. He said this because Ares could have clearly dodged his final attack but deliberately took that sword strike with his shoulder. Ares was very satisfied with this. You're absolutely right. The human realm has many strong opponents, and you can't possibly win without a scratch. Only by boldly exposing your own weaknesses to make opponents lower their guard can you deliver unexpected, devastating blows. So in my classroom, there are no advanced sword techniques. What I want to teach you is the sword method of victory. This made Adel fall into contemplation. The midterm exam was approaching. According to the novel's content, it was because a spy from the demon realm leaked the exam content in advance that the instructors of Imperial Academy were able to prepare countermeasures. Imperial Academy not only suffered no losses, but also made the Demon Academy pay a heavy price. Thinking of this, Adel couldn't help but suspect, could Ares have identified me as that spy? If that's truly the case, then before the midterm exam, he must find that real spy. During the break, Adel sat alone in the classroom thinking. If he confessed directly to Ares, he definitely wouldn't believe his words. Besides suspecting his identity, the killing intent and cruel appearance he'd shown during this time also made Ares uncomfortable. But what troubled him was that to counter the martial power and authority of the 7 deadly sins, he couldn't abandon this cruel side. His eyes immediately turned cold. If Ares crosses the line again like yesterday, I can't guarantee what I'll do. Just then, Luna suddenly ran over to interrupt his thoughts. Yesterday we agreed to have lunch together. Could we do it today? Thus, after coming to the cafeteria together, looking at the sumptuous food in front of Adel, Luna was somewhat surprised. Can you really eat this much? Wasting food will bring punishment from the demon god of greed. But just as Adel was about to respond, a familiar figure suddenly caught his attention. At the same time, the Spider-Man also cast a hostile glance in their direction. This puzzled Adel. What exactly happened between you and them? Why do those people bully you? Luna was equally confused about this. I don't know why either. It just suddenly started one day. Maybe it's because I'm weak and my physical abilities are ordinary. But what Luna didn't understand was that they never laid a hand on her. At most, they would curse at her or steal her silver coins. Hearing this, Adel showed a kind smile. Stay by my side from now on. Luna immediately declined Adel's kindness. I just need to prove I'm different from other demon traders, and no one will bully me anymore. Seeing this, Adel asked her about the Spider-Man's identity. After learning from Luna that his name was Kyle, Adel was immediately shocked. Such a familiar name. Could it be the one described in the novel? To verify his suspicion, he asked whether Kyle was a half-demon. Luna hastily denied. He's of pure demon bloodline, but I'm a bit afraid of him because he often looks at us half-demons with hostile eyes. Hearing this, Arsenadel immediately had his answer, so it's him. With that thought, he walked up to Kyle. There's a girl in Imperial Academy's first year. I remember that half-demon only has one brother. That girl's name is Ray. Do you know this name? Before Kyle could respond, the green-haired person beside him issued a stern warning to Arsenadel, but the next second, Arsenadel unceremoniously knocked him to the ground. It really is that name. Seeing this, Kyle stood up with a gloomy expression, then left the scene without looking back. Later in the restroom, the green-haired man was still indignant. Damn bastard. He then turned his gaze to Kyle. Didn't you say we can't trust half-demons? But why did you choose to run away just now? However, as soon as he finished speaking, Kyle slammed his head against the wall. Damn pest! You're so annoying. He then issued a final warning to the other person. Now take this guy and get out of here. Otherwise you'll end up the same way as him. Moments later, looking at himself in the mirror, Kyle was puzzled. The disguise magic is fine, and I'm also a half-demon disguised as a demon. Logically, I shouldn't have been discovered. But how did that guy know? Could he also be a spy sent by the human realm? But he quickly dismissed this idea. The guards of the Bears family are enough to prove his identity. So who exactly is that guy? And how does he know about my sister? Thinking of this, he immediately made up his mind. Then I'll completely silence Arsenadel before my identity is discovered. Time came to night. In a secret room somewhere in the academy, Kyle was making final preparations to assassinate Arsenadel. But before that, he decided to relay the information about his exposure to the human realm. Just then, a figure suddenly pushed open the door. After seeing it was Arsenadel, Kyle was immediately shocked. How did you know about this place? With that, he threw the pen in his hand over, while simultaneously releasing several magic orbs. While dodging, Arsenadel showed an intriguing smile. It's actually a second-level magic energy ball. Are you not planning to hide your identity anymore? Looking at it this way, your current face is probably fake too. Kyle immediately confirmed this. But compared to hearing all this, he was more concerned about how Arsenadel knew about Ray. This made Arsenadel sigh. I didn't expect that in this situation, the first thing he'd think of would be a sister. It seems he's not helping humans, but chose to ally with humans to cure his sister's incurable disease. But he doesn't know one thing. Why not take this opportunity to provoke him properly? With that thought, Arsenadel immediately smiled coldly. Your sister is really beautiful. Thinking of her tear-stained smile really makes one want to destroy her. Hearing this, Kyle immediately flew into a rage. Shut up! Now I'll make you tell me everything you know before you die. Seeing this scene, Arsenadel smiled playfully. The fish has finally taken the bait. With that thought, he immediately provoked, if you can do it, feel free to try. As he spoke, a magic orb instantly shot forward at high speed. Seeing this, Arsenadel immediately used position transfer. This shocked Kyle, who witnessed the entire process. Are you a teleportation ability user? But this only earned him a counter-question from Arsenadel. Didn't you investigate me? You should have known this already. Seeing that everything was exposed, Kyle immediately unleashed his full combat power. In that case, let me properly experience your abilities today.